I never dreamed it would be this long. Of course, I didn't dream it was going to happen. They haven't recovered any of Stacy or Suzie or Sherrill. You know, all three of them deserve to be found.
In 1992, Springfield, Missouri was the type of place where many residents feel connected to each other. Even though it's a big city with many colleges and growing businesses, people still took out time to establish long-term relationship with each other. Now, it was graduation season, and with that comes celebrations, family gatherings, the optimism that accompanies the end of one chapter and then the beginning of another. No one actually expected that one weekend in June, America's most enduring missing person investigation would take place. More than 3 decades later, the disappearance of 3 women, Suzie Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Suzie's mother, Sherrill Levitt, remained unsolved. Unfortunately, despite thousands of investigative hours, extensive media attention, and lots of public tips, no trace of these 3 women was found. The case had become known simply as the Springfield 3, a name that reflects both the mystery itself and the lack of answers that has defined that mystery for generations. So, why do investigators keep revisiting this case? To understand this, it is important we begin with the people whose lives were suddenly interrupted themselves. First is Suzie Streeter, a 19-year-old known for her independent and energetic disposition to life, looking forward to finishing high school and becoming a responsible human being. Our close friend, Stacy McCall, had also recently graduated. Like many graduates that weekend, 2 of them planned to celebrate with friends and colleagues before settling in for the night. Then thirdly, Suzie's mother, Sherrill Levitt, a 47-year-old woman who had built a reputation for herself as a talented hairstylist and a homemaker. Family members later said she took pride in creating a welcoming place for friends and relatives, making the house on East Delmar Street a gathering place for those close to her. Now, June 6th was actually the graduation ceremony proper, and many of the students felt a sense of achievement. That evening, everything went as expected. Friends met, parties continued into the night, and graduates moved from one celebration to another. All the usual things that we do in graduation ceremonies. According to the information from investigators, Suzie and Stacy spent time attending graduation events before deciding where to stay for the night. Now, that day, the 2 girls changed their plans several times during the evening. Rather than remain where they originally wanted, they eventually drove to Sherrill Levitt, that is Suzie's mother's home. Investigators believe they arrived during the early hours of June 7. At that point, nothing appeared unusual. There were no confirmed reports of distress, no emergency call, and no immediate indication that anything was wrong. The morning that followed, however, raised unanswered questions.
I'm mad at the police department. I don't feel like they've done their job. They haven't really pushed.
Now, friends expecting to see Suzie and Stacy earlier the next morning discovered that they couldn't reach any of the 2. So they went straight to the Delmar Street residence. What they saw that day would later become one of the most discussed aspects of the investigation. The house itself appeared largely undisturbed. Cars that belonged to the women were parked outside, suggesting they arrived home as expected. Inside, nothing was out of place. Clothing, purses, identification, and other everyday items were exactly where they should be. To investigators, these details would become significant because, let's be factual, people that voluntarily leave their home, even when it's for a short time, usually would at least go with something essential. Witnesses also recall finding the family dog inside the house. The animal appeared healthy but alone. There was actually no obvious signs that anyone had planned to be away for an extended period of time. A small detail actually attracted attention almost immediately. The glass covering the front porch light had been broken. These broken glass were cleaned by the people that initially went to the house before realizing that the resident might actually be a part of a criminal investigation later on. As a result, the investigators could never determine with certainty whether the damage had actually occurred before the disappearance, during the disappearance, or after. What might have been a routine house accident suddenly became another unanswered question. As family members started getting concerned, they decided to contact law enforcement that day. Detectives arrived to examine the residence, interview friends and relatives, and begin establishing a timeline. Now, during a missing person investigation such as this, the first thing they do is to determine the last confirmed movement of those involved. Now, in this case, the investigators reconstructed the previous evening with insights gotten from interviewing classmates, partygoers, neighbors, and anyone who was associated with the three women. Now, the timeline established that Suzie and Stacy had attended graduation ceremony before returning to the Delmar Street home, sometimes after midnight. Beyond that point, the certainty began to fade. No one actually ever confirmed seeing all three women leave the residence together. No confirmed financial activity suggesting they had traveled elsewhere. Their vehicle remained at the property. Many of their personal belongings remained behind. This fact transformed what might initially have appeared to be a missing person report into something far more unusual. Now, moving forward, investigators came in and tried to answer the question whether there was a struggle inside the house, but publicly available information suggested otherwise. This does not, however, mean or indicate that a crime was not committed, because every experienced investigators know for a fact that not all crime scenes shows obvious disorder. Circumstances are different, and conclusion must actually now be guided by evidence rather than assumption. Now, as the news of this disappearance spread across Springfield, volunteers joined officers in searching nearby neighborhoods, wooded area, and location where the women might have actually traveled. Missing person posters appeared throughout the city. Local television stations interrupted programs with updates, while newspapers carved out more space to the investigation. Now, from that point, the case quickly became popular even beyond Springfield. Before long, state and federal agencies also joined in, showing the unusual nature of the disappearance and the growing public concern. Then tips from several sources started pouring in. Some proved easily disproven, others required quite an expensive follow-up before the investigators could actually determine whether they had any connection to the case or not. Now, investigators in this case were guided by one code only: establish the fact first, then evaluate the possibilities. Now, at that time, publicly known physical evidence were few, so rumors, as expected, became increasingly available. Detectives, therefore, actually had to focus on verifiable information: timelines, witness interview, telephone records, and forensic examination of the resident, while continuing to ask simple but difficult questions. Questions like what happened between the time the three women arrived home and the moment friends realized they had vanished. It was a question that investigators hoped to answer within days. Instead, it will remain unanswered for decades. Investigation now shifted to the home's physical evidence, the earliest witness statement, and several leads that initially appeared promising before becoming more complicated under closer examination. For now, the fact was that Suzie and Stacy arrived at the Delmar Street home early Sunday morning, June 7. This is what investigators can confidently confirm through witness accounts and the timelines of the investigation. Firstly, the vehicle belonging to them was parked outside, showing they actually returned home after the graduation ceremony. Inside the house, the family dog, as said before, was alone but appeared unarmed. Personal belongings, including purses, identification, clothing, and other everyday items, remained inside the house untouched. That is a big mystery. Nothing to show that the women packed for a trip or left the home for a long time. And then, of course, the mystery of the broken glass from the porch lights, which was actually swept away by friends that early morning, not knowing it could become evidence of a crime. Now, according to public released information, investigators did not identify clear signs of the violent struggle inside the home, but this did not eliminate the possibility that a crime was committed. Now, telephone records and witness interviews became central to the investigation. Detectives worked all around to identify everyone who had spoken with or seen the women during the graduation ceremony. One of the most frequently discussed leads was from some witnesses who believed they had seen a woman resembling Suzie Streeter driving a vehicle several hours after the disappearance was believed to have occurred. Others reported sightings even from different states months and years after the incident, but none were confirmed as establishing what happened to the missing women. Throughout the 1990s and the 2000s, investigators continued reviewing physical evidence, witness statements, and previously submitted tips. As forensic science advanced, available evidence was periodically re-examined using newer analytical techniques that were not used before. Not everything was made public, of course, because law enforcement had to protect the investigative details of an active, unsolved investigation. Now, the case has also been reviewed by multiple investigative teams over the years. Fresh detectives have revisited witness interviews, reconstructed timelines, and evaluated information that earlier investigators may not have been able to fully assess. This practice is common in long-running cold cases where new perspective and technological development sometimes reveal previously overlooked connections. Public interest has remained unusually strong for more than 3 decades. Today, the disappearance of Sherrill Levitt, Suzie Streeter, and Stacy McCall remain one of the most well-known unsolved missing person investigations in the United States. The Springfield Police Department continue to accept information from the public, and investigators have stated that they remain willing to evaluate new evidences as forensic technology and investigative methods continue to evolve. Now, even though decades have passed, the central questions have not changed. What happened after Suzie and Stacy arrived at the Delmar Street home? Why did 3 people disappear without leaving behind a clear explanation? And is there evidence that have yet to be recognized for its significance? Until those questions can be answered through verifiable evidence, the Springfield 3 case remained an open investigation. One of the earliest priorities was reconstructing the movement of everyone that interacted with the 3 women leading up to June 7, 1992. Family members, classmates, neighbors, co-workers, and individuals who had attended graduation ceremony were interviewed. This was to establish where the 3 women had been, also whether anyone had exhibited unusual behavior, expressed hostility, or shown an unusual interest in their plan. After so many years has passed, public discussion increasingly focused on various individuals who had been mentioned in media reports or investigative commentaries like this. Some had prior criminal histories, others came into investigators' attention because of statements made by acquaintances or because their names were just simply mentioned in a public speculation. But it is important that we are clear that being questioned, investigated, or publicly discussed does not mean you are guilty of a crime. Throughout the history of the Springfield 3 investigation, no person has been convicted in connection with the disappearance, and the case remains officially unsolved. The investigation has also benefited from public reviews by experienced detectives assigned to cold cases. Rather than beginning from the assumption that earlier investigators made mistakes, these reviews typically involved re-examining the entire body of evidence with fresh eyes and the use of modern technology. More than 30 years after the disappearance, the Springfield 3 case continued to occupy a unique place in American criminal investigation. It shows how a case can remain active despite the absence of definitive public answers, and how investigators balance public interest with the need to protect information that may still prove important if new evidence emerges. After many decades, public attention naturally shifted towards newer cases. The disappearance of Sherrill Levitt, Suzie Streeter, and Stacy McCall remain an active investigation, with the possibility that a single credible lead could eventually alter the direction of the case.